In this video, I'm going to go over the gap and go trades that I am following for the week of January 22nd through the 26th. First up is Lowe's. We ended the week at $220.01. The gap that I'm still following would take us up to $225.33. I will now go over the price targets for Tuesday. So I'll show you where I'm seeing gaps to the upside and gaps to the downside, and then give you price targets as well. So we are right here. To the north side takes us to 2 standard deviations and a level of resistance and a potential take profit area at 221.11. Above that, 222.33. The gap begins at 223.26, 4 standard deviations and another level of resistance and potential take profit area, 223.53, and the gap closes out at 225.33. If we make it up to this level, I will anticipate a pullback as people lock in and they leave. They take off with their profits. So just be careful. I never expect price to go and stay along this line without it falling back, consolidating, barcoding, going sideways for a potential next leg up. Now, to the south side, back at the middle of the trend and the baseline where price will always go, it will always go through back to the baseline at 218.66, and the baseline will always change because the linear regression line changes. Okay, so make sure you pay attention to that. Now, to the south side, 216.22, I should say, continuing to the south side. And if we make it down here, that is one level of support. I will anticipate a bounce. 215, another bounce. And at 213.82, that is another level of support and a potential buy-in area. Fortunately, with Lowe's, we are going slightly up and sideways, and we did hit resistance here and started to fall. The RSI is, it's hard to see here because I've got that marked. Let me move it out of the way. So it is going down, so I will anticipate it to hit around the 30 mark, which would take us back down to the middle of the trend, and then from there possibly just grind our way sideways and until we make either move up or a move down. The next one is Orcl. I forgot to put this into my gap and go trades last week, so I am putting it into this week's category here, but the gap did not fill, and that is going to take us to $114.83. We are not there yet, not in that channel. We started to close it out, but we have not started to go up and then sideways here, up another leg. At least we are seeing higher highs with Orcl. The 1-year price target is 125.14, which represents a 14% return from where we are. And speaking of where we are, to the north side, middle of the trend, 110.12. This is resistance and a potential take profit area. 111.20, 111.76, and 112.24. I do not anticipate we hit 4 standard deviations, but if we do, again, anticipate price to fall. Now, to the south side, a gap forms at -2 standard deviations at basically 109.04. I will mark that out. Change it to red. And it closes out at roughly, it's just a tiny little gap, 108.73. The next level of support as well, 108.51. and 107.97. Unfortunately, we have other landmines to the south side to be aware of, and that would take us to roughly 106.36. And this other gap that I am tracking, Takes us out to 104.80, but we are in an upward channel, so definitely not in the zone, not even close, but something to be aware of once we start going down again. Nike, we ended the week at 101.78. And we are very close to 2 standard deviations, which is 102.01, 102.75, 103.47. Now, this gap formed this last week here. That is not the original gap that I was tracking, but now I will be tracking it as we make our way up, fingers crossed. And this was the gap that I was originally tracking here, 106.47, and then this big one to the north side, eventually at 122.40. We are not there, not in the channel, not in the zone, a long ways off, hundreds of trades in between to get to that level. But the next gap, and we closed out this one, by the way, it opened up and closed at 101.52. But we are in a downward channel, so be aware of that. And did I give you the prices to the south side? I don't think I did, but if I did, I'm just going to do it really quickly again. I'm getting sidetracked with all these gaps to the upside, looking at them. 155, 99.10, 98.34, and roughly 97.61. Ignore the horizontal lines. Those are previous support and resistance, and also price targets that we have hit. The next one is Sbux. I will give you the price targets and then go over the gaps so I don't get sidetracked. To the north side, 94.45, 94.91, and 95.36. 93.61, 92.73, 92.20, and 91.85. If we get outside towards the area of -2, -3, and -4, that is the outlier, and that is your your buy-in signals, a potential buy-in, a potential buy-in, a potential buy-in. And the lines here, 2, 3, and 4, a potential sell, 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 lock in and leave. All right, now to the gaps. This one opened up the week of the 8th through the 12th. I think, let me move this line back. Right there. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, it started here and we finally closed it out. So it gapped down. When a gap goes down, I anticipate it eventually to gap up, and it did. So if you were going long and you bought somewhere down here, eventually this is your take profit area, roughly. All right, and you can see where we touched right there. So this gap is no longer in play. This also closed up to the upside, and the gap that I am tracking takes us out to 97.64. And be aware of this gap also at forces with us here, and that would take us out to, what did I mark it? Nope, I have not marked the price. Let me move this line out of my way for a second. This one will take us out to 91.68. Another one begins at 90.65 and takes us out to 85.18. Now we are in an upward channel, so I don't think we'll get there. But when we do, eventually that will close out and come to haunt us. I have previously bought Sbux, I believe it was 2 years ago, at this level, loaded up, sold out at 120, and now we were back there again, well, in the 90s. I am in this trade for my mom. I don't know where I bought in at this point. because I've traded this before for myself. I'll have to look that up, but I know I probably should have sold out for her and made more money, but I am still up, I believe, for her. Now, the RSI is turning down, and look at that. We're not at the middle of the trend, and we will be. If we hit this and go down, we will hit that level. Price always goes through the middle of the trend, whether we're going to the downside or to the upside. Disney, the next one. 93.75, 94.44, 95.10. To the south side, the middle of the trend and the baseline, 92.35, and support from where we are. A potential buy-in, 90.94, 90.29, and 89.57. We've got a gap to be aware of to the south side here at 84.81. And where? Oh, wait a minute. I'm done tracking this one. I forgot to remove Disney. But be careful of this one. This is not a gap that I was tracking previously. The gap that I was tracking was this one, and it closed out on Tuesday. All right. But I have tracked this many times in different videos. And just so that you are aware, there is another gap to the upside right here that takes us to roughly 95.99. But I am not tracking this anymore because we closed the gap that is in my gap and go trades. I only like to do 13, and I will remove that. There we go. I was thinking there was an extra one, but I couldn't figure it out until just now, until I actually went through and did the charts. All right. Baba. I'll try to go through this very quickly now. It's getting long, the video. All right, to the north side, 68.21. Oh, no, that's not the north side. That's the south side. We're at 69.42. To the north side, let me start this over. 69.67. A gap forms at 70.22. 70.41. 71.14, that gap closes out at 71.82. More gaps to the upside, but we are a long ways off, not in the channel, not in the zone. We have tanked over the last year or so, longer probably. I have to go back and look, but we will go back eventually to fill those gaps when we go to the upside. To the middle of the trend, 68.21, a gap forms to the south side, 67.98, 66.76, 66.01, and another gap forms at -4 standard deviations, 65.29. I'm sorry, that gap closes out at 65.29. And we're not in that channel yet to close out. I don't think that will happen on Tuesday, but if we continue south, it could happen in the middle of the week. But the 1-year price target, 111.53. So in the big picture, there is a lot of room to the upside according to the analysts. The next one, Oxy. We are very close to a gap closure, at least one of them. This one opened up last week, the 16th through the 29th. And it opened up, was that Friday? No, it was on Friday. Yeah, it opened up Friday. So we are here to the north side. Takes us to 56.63, 56.89. And that gap right there closes out at 56.47. And at 2 standard deviations, roughly 56.37. Middle of the trend, 55.86, 55.35, 55.10, 54.84. I do not believe we will make it down to this level on Monday. And Another gap to the upside at there, 58.89. SLB. Mark that out. $50.37. A gap forms at $50.64, $50.99, $51.55, and that gap closes to the north side at $51.86. And the gap I'll be tracking after that one will be $56.43, but that was not the original gap. This is the original gap I was tracking. To the south side, basically the middle of the trend takes us to a gap fill starting at 49.10, closes out at 48.78, 48.01, 47.40, and 46.77. And the RSI is turning down. But at least we're slightly going upward here on Schlumberger. Altria Group, ticker symbol MO. We're at 40.33, 40.49, a gap fill, beginning at 40.61, 40.68, 40.72, 40.88, and another gap here, which is not the original gap I don't think that I was tracking, but since it opened up, I am marking it out roughly. Or maybe I did, no. Oh yeah, I did. 42.20. And then 41.35, off by a few pennies. There we go. To the south side, 40.10, 39.73, 39.53, 39.34. Exelon, 35.04 is where we ended. 35.18, 35.35. I don't know why I have that marked. Let me delete it. Oh, that was probably resistance that I marked out for myself. Did I already just go through this? I need to hurry up and quit here. 35.18, 35.34, closes out here at 35.75. And then, yes, I did. 35.98, 36.07. And this one closes out at 36.62. To the south side, 34.85, 34.51, 34.35, and 34.18. Next up, Pfizer. $28.43, $28.64, $28.84, and the gap to the north side closes out at 30.35. The middle of the trend takes us to 28.02, 27.60, 27.39. A gap forms to the south side at roughly 27.27, closes out at 27.06, and then this one closes out at 26.61. The next one is Tsly. Okay, we are at resistance, so I will anticipate a sell-off for a potential move to the upside, but obviously there are moves to the downside as well. But another level I'm looking at is 10.01. A gap forms at 10.07, 10.09 closes out at 10.23, and then this one closes out at 10.51, and another one at 10.82. What is that one? Oh, this is the bigger one. Oh my goodness, there are so many gaps to the upside. So if you see a lot of gaps to the upside, that means there were many gaps to the downside. And Tesla has tanked to the downside. Earnings is coming up soon too. All right, to the south side, 977, 961, 953, and 945. Sofi. This one has cratered recently. 749 is where we ended to the north side. Basically, a gap begins at 758, closes out at 4 standard deviations, 769, and another gap closes out at 787. And then we have more gaps to the upside here, but I will talk about those gaps later as we get closer. We are not even in that channel, not in the zone, but something to be aware of. To the south side, 723, 688, and 678. NEO is the last one. On barcharts.com, there are unusual options going on for NEO. So take a look at that at barcharts.com. And they do have calls on it. All right. 606 is where we ended to the north side here. 609, 617, a gap forms to the upside at 618. So we're very close there. 625 closes out at 627. And then other gaps to look forward to here at 717. Now, south side, middle of the trend, 598, 577, 570, 562. Fingers crossed we don't go, that we stop the bleeding with NEO. Note the bounce here at support, sell off at resistance, sell off at resistance. It's like clockwork. So we're basically at resistance again. Will we close this out? I think so. I think that's very doable. And then fall back down again. All right, that does it for me. That is a look at the gap and go trades for this week, January 22nd through the 26th. Thank you so much for watching and have a great and profitable trading week.